There was another case that was in front of the Illinois Supreme Court that Governor J.B. Pritzker was a chief defendant in, and that was the case challenging the Safety Act's pretrial fairness provision that ended cash bail. Well, justices weren't asked to recuse themselves in that case, but regardless, they did proceed forward despite those questionable campaign contributions from Democratic leaders. So ultimately what happened there was the Supreme Court sided with the state and said that no cash bail would go into effect September 18th. And some of the things that, of course, were brought up were, is it really going to make the communities safer? And that's something I think is still up in the air. I connected with the McHenry County State's Attorney, Patrick Kennealley, and asked him about the Pretrial Fairness Act and how they are proceeding forward with it.
The joke. I mean, we haven't looked at the numbers, but the type of people who are being released with with criminal histories, especially on non-detainable offenses, it is the decisions that the legislature has foisted upon us at the 22nd Judicial Circuit is totally out of step with the expectations that citizens of McHenry County have for their criminal justice system and what's necessary in order to keep McHenry County safe. So
Patrick Kennealley saying that it's a joke, but of course it is the law of the land. When we also chatted with the Kankakee County Sheriff, he laid out, some of his concerns and also what he'd like to see happen. So here is the Kankakee County Sheriff, Mike Downey, talking about the problems that he's seen so far with the Pretrial Fairness Act ending cash bail in the state of Illinois.
A lot of failures to appear, and we anticipated that. I mean, as I told our Criminal Justice Committee a couple weeks ago, the Safety Act is playing out just about how we figured it would play out. It is, the things that were going to happen, we predicted were happening, are happening. People aren't showing up for court. There's nothing that is enticing them to show up to court. We have a significantly increased number of individuals who get stopped for a traffic offense, or we attempt to stop them for a traffic offense, and they flee and elude us. And across the state, I know every jurisdiction probably has different pursuit policies, but I can tell you that almost every jurisdiction will not pursue an individual fleeing from a from a stop for speeding. And so, because there are no ramifications, and that's frustrating for law enforcement. It not only endangers the police who are doing their job, but it also puts our community at risk for people driving away, fleeing at a fast rate of speed.
Again, Mike Downey with the Kankakee County Sheriff's Office talks about the importance of addressing some of the problems, and those problems, of course, going to come from the application of the law, but who's going to be lobbying? He talked about how indeed they are expected to hit the streets in Springfield while lawmakers are there to discuss the next steps and what possible changes there could be for this law ending cash bail in the state of Illinois.
I think there are some lobbying efforts going on right now. Whether or not anything gets put down on paper and whether or not Don Harmon or Chris Welch call them up, that's certainly on them. But we have a significant number of issues that we want to deal with. And, we're just hoping that there's enough time that has gone by since not only the Safety Act, but the Pretrial Fairness Act has been in effect since September 18th, that somebody looks at these and says, you know what, we can do some things to change, to make things better. And we're not looking at this to make things better for the sheriffs. We're not making things better to look for the police, although that's certainly something that we care about. We're looking to make things better for the communities that are being overrun with criminal activity.
Well, then I asked if he had some kind of magic wand. What would he do to the law if he could change anything?
Yes, if I had a magic wand, Greg, I would get rid of the non-detainable offenses and give the discretion back to the judges, which was what part of the the original lawsuit was that Jim Rowe filed, our state's attorney. The judges right now for certain offenses have no discretion whatsoever in determining whether or not somebody should be detained. So if somebody commits 10 retail thefts in a 2-week period, there is nothing in that legislation that allows a judge to hold them, unless two things: unless they are a threat to the community, or a threat to themselves, or if they are a flight risk, which there is nothing in the threat to a flight risk. There is nothing that we are allowed to show that makes them a threat to flee, other than if we catch them with a disguise and an airplane ticket to some other jurisdiction. And the likelihood of that is, as we've indicated a number of times, is none. You're never going to prove that somebody's a flight risk. So, and not showing up to court, those failure to appears is not part of being a flight risk. That's not considered being a flight risk. So, the discretion needs to go back to the judges. They can look at a number of things as to how they affect the communities, because what we're seeing happening is we're seeing a number of retail thefts, and I'm sure you've seen all the smash and grabs, and you walk into a store and people are walking out with armfuls of retail items. And, until a judge can say, we're going to hold you in jail, and hey, forget about cash bail. I mean, we know that that's probably not coming back anytime soon, but just give our judicial system an opportunity to say, you need to be in jail, not necessarily because you're a threat to our community or yourself, but because you are a criminal nuisance and you need to be off the street. Because who's going to bear the cost of all these businesses who are losing money from people stealing from them? Guys like you and I are. The taxpayers of the state of Illinois are. And so that would be my number one thing with the Safety Act, is to give the judges discretion and eliminate these so-called non-detainable offenses. But on the other hand, you still have to understand that the judges have to take into account, if an individual steals something for the first time in his or her life, I understand not holding them in jail for any period of time. Okay, we all make mistakes. But then if that continues, and you continue to steal, you continue to go in and commit retail thefts, at some point you have to say, look, we have to put you in jail so that you don't go and cause problems in these retail places.
So again, that's Sheriff Mike Downey and the state's attorney from McHenry County, Patrick McNeely, talking about the Safety Act, the Pretrial Fairness Act, and some of the problems they've seen with that. Not the last we hear on those issues. I imagine there'll be plenty of debate whenever lawmakers return to the state capitol in mid-January.